turning the page in Vietnam today on The World. I'm Marco Werman. President Obama travels to Vietnam this weekend. Both countries are still trying to put the war behind them. This Vietnamese American sees the president's trip as an opportunity.
There's a fear that it'll open a lot of wounds, but it's hugely symbolic because I believe that it's signaling that we can move forward.
Also remembering how the late Morley Safer and the rest of the CBS crew covered the Vietnam War.
In those days, at least half of the CBS Evening News belonged to the Vietnam story.
And a Moroccan filmmaker on how Hollywood chooses his country as a stand-in for just about any Arab country.
Pictures, Morocco, Google, okay. Oh, sand desert. Okay, that's perfect.
Those stories coming up today here on The World. I'm Marco Werman, and you're with The World. Thanks for being with us on this Friday. We're going to start today with Vietnam and its long, complicated relationship with the U.S. In a few minutes, we'll have an appreciation of Morley Safer, a journalist who saw the darkest side of that relationship during the war there. But first, let's talk about President Obama's trip to Vietnam. He arrives there on Sunday at the invitation of the country's communist leaders. Not everyone's happy about it for various reasons, and Vietnamese immigrants in the U.S. have mixed views on the trip, too. Cecilia Tran explored this in an essay. You can read it at our website, pri.org. It tells the story of how her mother decided to go back to Vietnam for the first time since she left in 1980. I asked Cecilia what her mother thinks of Obama's visit.
My mom is very hopeful about the visit. She feels that it'll bring a sense of healing, and the kind of healing that she experienced after going back home and realizing that this image of Vietnam that she had had in her head about war and chaos, political turmoil, isn't the same place that it is today.
I mean, a lot of people who emigrate from places, especially places that have been through war, kind of want to make a break, even though there are a lot of cultural ties still. They want to make a break with the country. Are you surprised that your mother is kind of supportive of this visit?
I'm incredibly surprised. I think that for the longest time, she had made it clear to me that she never wanted to go back to Vietnam. And it's because I think she associated it with a time in her life where everything was uncertain. She didn't know who in her family would live or die. It was the middle of the war, and after the war had ended, the chaos persisted. And so for her to say that she's optimistic about the visit is really telling. And I think that it shows that she's open to the idea that she can make peace with what happened and that the two countries can make peace with what happened.
You know, if your mom had not changed her mind, I'd have almost said she was kind of taking a position a lot of Cubans who've come here have taken, how they feel about the communist regime back on the island. You think that's a valid parallel?
I think it's a very valid parallel. A lot of that experience and a lot of that Cold War context is very much the same with the Vietnamese Americans.
Did you and your mother ever kind of have serious disagreements about, going back, not going back, that kind of discussion?
Oh, 100%. So I actually grew up in the States feeling like I was curious about this place that she called her homeland, wanted to know more about it. She was very resistant to going back, and I actually chose to go back right after college through a language program, a Fulbright program. And I think that was really hard for her. I think that she was really scared about what would happen to me because in her mind, the country was still very unsafe. And she had a lot of concerns about my safety and about the politics around it. But I think once I came back and told her the stories about relatives that I had met for the first time, friends that she had known, I think it started to open her mind to the idea of going back, and it was a very gradual process before she felt like, it was okay for her to go back.
This will be the third presidential visit since the end of the Vietnam War. I mean, it's only a visit. Can you make the case why, for Vietnamese and Vietnamese Americans, this visit is hugely symbolic?
It's hard for me to speak for the entire community, but I think that there's a reason that Obama's doing this at the very end of his term, because it opens, there's a fear that it'll open a lot of wounds and reopen a lot of gateways to trauma. It's been almost half a century later, but the pain is still there. I think